Welcome to your deep dive. You gave us some pretty fascinating stuff to work with for this one. It's these excerpts from this text, originally written in Arabic,
Yeah.
all about this concept of a sun within. It's exciting. We get to really dig into some ancient ideas here.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. One thing that really struck me was how this sun within idea, well, it kind of pops up all over the place in different ancient cultures, Like it wasn't just stuck in one place or philosophy.
Yeah, that's a good point. It makes you wonder if there's something more to it,
Yeah,
Like some universal truth that they were all tapping into.
totally. And it wasn't like they were all in contact with each other. Like geographically, they were so spread out. But they all arrived at this, well, the same basic concept.
Okay, so let's get into it. First things first, we're not talking about an actual, like, literal sun inside of us.
Right.
It's more like a powerful metaphor.
Exactly, a metaphor for this hidden source of life, and consciousness, even divinity. This sun within was seen as the true essence of who we are, our most authentic selves, the real deal.
Gotcha. So it's like deeper than our personality or our ego. It's that core essence, that spark that makes us, well, us.
Exactly, that's a great way to put it. And the source material, it really emphasizes how important this sun within was to these ancient philosophies. They saw it as the driving force behind everything.
Okay, so give me an example. Like, how did they actually relate this sun within idea to the world around them?
Well, think of it this way. Like on a huge cosmic scale, it's the source of all creation, right? The Big Bang, the whole shebang. But then on an individual level, it's that spark of the divine within each of us, like you were saying.
Okay, so it's both macro and micro, cosmic and personal. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that they understood that this sun within wasn't static or passive, It was seen as this dynamic force, constantly radiating energy and influencing everything around it.
Like, it's not just sitting there. It's actively shaping reality.
Exactly. It's like the engine that keeps the whole universe humming. And remember, different cultures had different names and symbols for this concept.
Right. Like, we can't just stick to one specific cultural interpretation. We've got to kind of weave together all these different perspectives to get the full picture.
Right. Like in Hindu philosophy, for example, it's called Atman. It's the eternal, unchanging essence within each person.
Okay, so it's not just some abstract idea floating out there. It's something that's deeply personal and connects us to something much, much bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And what's really cool is that many of these ancient cultures believed that we've somehow become separated from this sun within, They called it the fall.
Like being cast out of the Garden of Eden. That kind of separation from the divine.
You got it. Adam and Eve, paradise lost, the whole deal. It's a classic story of how we lost touch with our true nature.
And there are echoes of this story in other cultures too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like the Greek myth of Persephone, The one where she gets abducted by Hades and taken down to the underworld.
Yeah, it's like this symbolic representation of the soul getting trapped in the material world.
Yeah.
Losing touch with that divine spark.
Right on. And that's where the idea of a path back to wholeness comes in. Like, how do we get back to that state of connection with the sun within?
Okay, yeah, the million-dollar question. What did these ancient cultures believe we needed to do to begin that journey back to the source?
Well, that's what we're going to dig into next. But the source material, it definitely hints at some ways to reconnect. It's about awakening to our true nature, remembering who we really are.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive deeper into those paths of awakening. I'm really excited to see where this goes.
Me too. It's going to get really interesting.
Stay with us. Okay, so we've been talking about this sun within, and it's clear that it's a pretty big deal, like a really powerful concept with a lot to unpack. But how do we actually align ourselves with this divine will? How do we, actually become instruments for this great work? What does that even mean?
That is the big question, isn't it? And the source material, it really gets into the nuts and bolts of this whole process. Like, how does this actually work? It uses this cool analogy. It talks about a pulsating solar bubble to explain how creation kind of unfolds from the sun within.
Okay. Pulsating solar bubble. That sounds, well, a little out there, but definitely interesting. Break that down for me.
Sure. So imagine, right, the sun within at the center. It's this vibrating source of energy. And this vibration, it creates this kind of bubble around it, a field of energy and matter that's constantly expanding and contracting.
So this bubble, it's like the universe as we experience it, right? Expanding and contracting. And it's all driven by the sun within at the core.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting it. But here's the key. With each outward pulse, With each expansion of the bubble, a new layer of reality is created. And as these layers form, they get denser, more material, further away from that central sun within.
So the further away we get from the source, the more we get kind of bogged down in the material world, right? Is that what the fall is all about?
It's like this gradual process of moving away from the source, becoming denser, more forgetful of our true nature, more entangled in all the stuff of the material world.
Okay, so how do we reverse that process? How do we get back to the sun within?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the big question. And the source material, it suggests that it's not just about physically moving closer, it's about remembering our connection to the source, about reactivating this blueprint that we carry within us.
Oh, right. You mentioned that blueprint earlier. It's like this cosmic DNA that we inherit from the sun within.
Exactly. And this blueprint, it's not just some passive code, it's constantly radiating outward, influencing the formation of everything in the universe. It's like a guiding force, shaping our reality from the inside out.
Okay, so the journey back to the sun within is also about aligning ourselves with this blueprint, with our, true potential, who we're meant to be.
Exactly. It's about remembering who we truly are, shedding those layers of density that have kind of obscured our true nature, all that stuff that's blocking our light.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually do that? How do we peel back those layers and get back to that core, that sun within?
Well, the source material, it points to a few key practices. And it's interesting how these kind of echo across different cultures and traditions. There's some universal wisdom here.
Okay, I love that, the universal stuff. What are some of these practices that can help us on this journey?
Well, one that keeps coming up is the idea of purification. We touched on that earlier. It's about cleansing ourselves on all levels. Physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. It's like a full body, full mind detox.
So it's not just about meditating on a mountaintop, right? It's about taking care of our bodies, working through our emotional baggage, and clearing out all the mental clutter.
Exactly. It's about creating a space within ourselves where that inner light can really shine through. And different cultures, they had different methods for achieving this purification.
Like what? Give me some examples of purification practices from the source material. I'm always curious about the specifics.
Sure. In the ancient Egyptian tradition, they had these elaborate rituals for purifying the ka and the ba, those aspects of the self that we talked about earlier, remember?
Yeah, the ka being the life force and the ba, the personality.
Right. And these rituals, they involved fasting, chanting, and these symbolic cleansing practices, really engaging the body and the senses.
So it's very hands-on, very embodied, not just an intellectual exercise.
Exactly. And in other traditions, like the yogic practices of ancient India, purification involved specific postures, breathing techniques, and ethical guidelines for living, how to live in a way that's aligned with your true nature.
It sounds like they really understood that true transformation involves all aspects of our being, right? It's not just about having a spiritual experience, but about integrating that experience into our daily lives, how we live, how we interact with the world.
You got it. That's a crucial point. It's not about escaping the world, but about bringing the light of the sun within into the world, expressing it through our actions, our relationships, everything we do.
Okay, so purification is key. What else does the source material highlight? What other practices can help us on this journey?
Another super important element is the cultivation of awareness. This involves really understanding ourselves, our thoughts, our emotions, and our patterns of behavior. Why do we do the things we do?
So it's about becoming more mindful, more self-aware, not just reacting to life, but consciously choosing how we respond.
Exactly. The source material really emphasizes the importance of paying attention to the inner world, becoming aware of the voices that are guiding us, the beliefs that are shaping our perceptions, and the habits that are keeping us, stuck.
Right, because if we're not even aware of those things, we can't change them, right? It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet when you don't even know where the leak is coming from.
Perfect analogy. The source material suggests that as we become more aware, we gain more choice in how we live our lives. We become less reactive, less at the mercy of our emotions and our habits. We become more intentional, more in the driver's seat.
Okay, so purification and awareness. Those are two biggies.
Yeah.
What else does the source material talk about?
One more practice that's really woven throughout is the cultivation of devotion. And this isn't about blind faith or obedience to some external authority, It's about nurturing a deep connection to something greater than ourselves.
So it's more about cultivating a sense of reverence, of awe, and wonder at the mystery of existence.
You got it. And the object of this devotion It can vary depending on the individual and the tradition. It could be a deity, a spiritual teacher, a guiding principle, or even the sun within itself.
Right. It's about finding that thing, that connection that really inspires you, that lifts you beyond your limited sense of self and connects you to something bigger.
Exactly. And the source material, it suggests that this devotional connection, it's like fuel for the journey back to the sun within. It provides a source of strength, guidance, and inspiration, especially during those times when the path gets tough, when you hit those inevitable bumps in the road.
Okay, so we've got purification, awareness, and devotion. 3 key practices for connecting with the sun within and embarking on this great work of personal and collective transformation. It's a lot to take in.
It is. But what's cool is that these practices, they're not presented as like rigid rules or dogma,
Yeah.
They're more like principles that can be adapted and applied in all sorts of different ways.
So it's not about finding the one right path, but about finding the path that works for you, that resonates with your own unique needs and like your own journey.
Exactly. The source material emphasizes that the journey back to the sun within is deeply personal. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's about finding what works for you, what helps you connect with that inner light.
So how do we know which path is right for us? How do we navigate this huge landscape of spiritual practices and traditions without getting lost?
That's where discernment comes in. The source material really stresses the importance of developing that ability to distinguish between what's truly helpful and what's not, what resonates with our deepest truth and what's just a distraction.
So it's about developing our inner compass, our intuition, right? Learning to trust that inner voice that's guiding us towards what's right for us.
Right on. And the source material suggests that as we engage in the practices of purification, awareness, and devotion, our discernment naturally strengthens. We become more attuned to those subtle signals that are guiding us on our path, the whispers of our soul.
So it's like a positive feedback loop. The more we practice, the clearer our inner guidance becomes, and the easier it is to navigate all the complexities of this spiritual journey.
Exactly. It's like building a muscle, the muscle of discernment. The more we use it, the stronger it gets. And one thing I find really fascinating about the source material is how it weaves together these inner practices with the outer world. It suggests that as we reconnect with the sun within, we naturally start to see the world differently. Like our whole perception shifts.
Okay, that makes sense. When our inner world changes, our outer world reflects that change.
Yeah.
But what does that actually look like? How does connecting with the sun within change our perception of the world around us?
Well, the source material talks about a few key shifts that happen. One is a move from separation to connection. Like as we realize our own inherent unity with the sun within, we start to see the interconnectedness of everything.
So instead of seeing ourselves as these isolated individuals, we start to see the web of relationships that connects us all, right? Like we're all part of this big cosmic tapestry.
Exactly. And that shift in perception, it naturally leads to more compassion, more empathy, and a deeper sense of responsibility for the well-being of others. It's like we're all in this together.
It's like that saying, we are all one, but instead of it just being a nice idea, it becomes a lived reality, something we actually experience and feel in our bones.
Right. Another shift that the source material points to is a move from fear to love. As we connect with that boundless love and light of the sun within, we naturally start to feel safer, more secure, less threatened by the world around us,
So instead of reacting to life from a place of fear and scarcity, we can respond from a place of love and abundance.
Precisely. And this doesn't mean that challenges and difficulties disappear, but it does mean that we can face them with more courage, resilience, and grace. We have this inner reservoir of strength to draw on.
Okay, so we got connection and love. What's the third shift that the source material mentions?
The third shift is a move from limitation to possibility. As we align with the sun within, we tap into this source of infinite creativity and potential, We start to see beyond the limitations of our current reality and envision new possibilities for ourselves and the world.
So it's like we're shedding those old beliefs and stories that tell us what's possible and what's not. We're opening ourselves up to a whole new realm of possibilities.
Exactly. The source material suggests that as we connect with the sun within, we become co-creators with the universe, We tap into that power to manifest our dreams and contribute to the unfolding of a more beautiful and just world.
Okay, this is all starting to sound really inspiring, but I have to admit, it also feels a little overwhelming. Like, where do we even begin with all of this? It's a lot to process.
That's a totally valid feeling. And the source material acknowledges that this journey, it's not always easy. There will be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. That's just part of the process. But it also emphasizes that we don't have to do it alone.
Okay, so who or what can help us on this path? Who can we turn to for support when things get tough?
Well, one source of support is the sun within itself. Like, the source material describes it as this constant presence, a guiding force that's always available to us, even when we're not aware of it. It's always there, waiting for us to tune in.
It's like that saying, the teacher appears when the student is ready.
Right. And the source material, it suggests that we can cultivate a more conscious connection with this inner guide through the practices we've been discussing. Purification, awareness, devotion, these are all ways of opening ourselves up to that inner wisdom.
So the more we purify ourselves, cultivate awareness, and nurture devotion, the more receptive we become to the guidance of the sun within.
Exactly. It's like we're clearing the static, tuning the dial to the right frequency, And as we become more receptive, we start to experience synchronicities, intuitions, a sense of flow in our lives. It's like we're aligning ourselves with the currents of the universe, and things start to fall into place more effortlessly.
Okay, so we've got the sun within as this internal GPS guiding us, and then we have the support of other people to help us along the way.
Yes. That's really important. The source material highlights the importance of external support systems. This could be spiritual teachers, mentors, communities of like-minded seekers, or even just supportive friends and family members.
So it's not about becoming a solitary hermit on a mountaintop, right? It's about finding a balance between inner work and outer connection.
Exactly. We need each other. The source material really emphasizes that we're not meant to walk this path alone. We need each other for support, encouragement, and accountability, to help us stay on track, to remind us of our true nature when we get lost in the weeds.
Okay, so we have the sun within as our inner guide, and we have other people to support us along the way. What else can help us on this journey? What other resources are available to us?
The source material, it also talks about the importance of engaging with nature, really spending time in nature. It suggests that being in nature can help us reconnect with our own true nature.
Right, because nature is like a reflection of the divine, isn't it? It reminds us of the beauty, harmony, and interconnectedness that we're seeking to cultivate within ourselves.
Exactly. The source material, it encourages us to find ways to connect with the natural world, whether it's through gardening, hiking, or just sitting under a tree and breathing in the fresh air.
So it's not just about meditating in a cave. It's about bringing the principles of the sun within into every aspect of our lives,
Right.
including our relationship with the natural world.
You got it. And in addition to nature, the source material also highlights the importance of creative expression. It suggests that creativity is a powerful tool for connecting with the sun within and expressing its light in the world.
So it's about finding ways to channel that creative energy, right?
Right.
Whether it's through art, music, writing, or any other form of self-expression that speaks to you, that lights you up.
Exactly. The source material encourages us to explore our creative potential, not just as a hobby, but as a spiritual practice, a way to connect with that divine spark within and share it with the world.
It's like we're all artists in a way, co-creating the world with every thought, word, and action.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And when we align our creative expression with the sun within, we become conduits for its light, its beauty, and its transformative power.
Okay, so we've got a lot of tools and resources at our disposal for embarking on this journey back to the sun within. But I'm still kind of stuck on this whole great work thing that we keep talking about. What does that actually look like, in practice? How do we contribute to the evolution of consciousness? It seems so big, so abstract.
I know, it's a huge concept. And the source material, it provides some really interesting insights into that question. But it's important to note that it doesn't give any easy answers or prescribed formulas, It emphasizes that the great work is an unfolding process, a mystery that reveals itself gradually as we walk the path.
So it's not about following a set of instructions, but about listening to our inner guidance and responding to the needs of the moment, being present and adaptable.
Exactly. The source material suggests that the great work is less about achieving a specific outcome and more about embodying a certain way of being in the world, a way of living that's aligned with the sun within.
Okay, so what does it mean to embody the sun within? What are the qualities or characteristics that we're trying to cultivate? What does that actually look like?
Well, the source material, it offers this rich tapestry of metaphors and symbols to describe this way of being. It talks about becoming a beacon of light, a vessel of love, a channel of wisdom, a catalyst for healing, and an instrument of peace.
So it's not just about our own personal enlightenment. It's about radiating that light outward, sharing it with the world, and contributing to the collective good.
Exactly. And the source material, it suggests that as we embody the sun within, we naturally start to attract other people who are also on this path. We become part of this collective movement towards greater awareness, love, and compassion.
It's like we're all stars in the night sky, right? Each shining our own unique light, and together we create this constellation of hope and possibility.
That's a beautiful image. And what's really cool is that the source material suggests that this great work, it's not confined to any particular religion, spiritual tradition, or belief system. It's a universal calling that speaks to that deepest longing of the human heart, that yearning for connection, for meaning, for something more.
So anyone can participate, regardless of their background or beliefs.
Exactly. The sun within shines on everyone equally, and the path back to its light is always open. It's a matter of choosing to walk that path.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored the nature of the sun within, the practices for connecting with it, and the implications for our personal and collective evolution.
And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some of the specific ways that the sun within can manifest in our lives and in the world. Like, how do we actually bring this concept down to earth and make it real?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Definitely ready to hear more about that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, talking about this sun within as this source of energy, this guidance, this like information even. And we've explored these practices for actually connecting with it and even how this connection can totally change how we see the world,
Yeah.
But how does this sun within, how does it actually show up in our lives? Like in real practical ways? What does it really look like to actually live this out?
Yeah, that's the real question, right? And the source material, it does offer some pretty cool perspectives on this, on how this sun within can kind of pop up in our lives in ways that, that aren't always these huge mystical experiences, Often it's more about subtle shifts, like in how we see things, the choices we make, and how we interact with the world around us.
So it's more about those everyday moments, those choices, even small ones, that actually show a deeper connection to like who we really are.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. It's not about reaching some far off goal. It's about living from a place of greater awareness, more compassion, and a stronger sense of purpose in every single moment.
Okay, so paint me a picture.
Yeah.
Like, what are some actual examples of how this sun within could show up in a person's life? What would that look like?
Sure. Well, one way is through creativity and inspiration. Like when we connect with that inner source of light, we often feel this surge of creative energy, like a desire to express ourselves in new ways that are really meaningful. This could be through art, music, writing, really anything that lets us channel that inner light.
So it's like the sun within is, it's kind of fueling that creative fire. It's giving us that inspiration to bring more beauty and meaning into the world.
Exactly. And it's not just about like personal satisfaction. It's also about sharing our gifts with others, adding our piece to the whole human experience.
Okay, that's one. What else? How else might this sun within show up?
Another way is through relationships, like really deep and fulfilling relationships. When we connect with that, with the love and compassion that flows from the sun within, we kind of naturally attract people who vibe with that same energy, right? Our relationships, they become more real, more supportive, more aligned with what we truly value.
So it's not just about finding the right people, but also about being the right person,
Yeah.
right? Like radiating the qualities that we want to attract in others.
Exactly. It's about, doing the inner work so that we can attract the right people into our lives. The source material says that when we cultivate that inner light, we become magnets for others who are also on that path, who are also trying to embody their own sun within.
I like that. We can like help each other shine brighter just by being who we truly are.
Yeah. Exactly. And, another way the sun within can show up is through a really strong sense of purpose in life, like a real feeling of meaning. As we connect with that inner wisdom, we start to see more clearly what our unique gifts are and how we can actually use them to make a real difference in the world.
So it's less about finding a job just to pay the bills,
Right.
and more about discovering what really lights us up, what our soul is calling us to do, and then actually living that out, right?
Right. It's about living a life that truly matters. And the source material really emphasizes that everyone, like literally everyone, has a unique role to play in this great work. And discovering and actually fulfilling that role is, well, it's one of the most fulfilling parts of being human.
Okay, that all sounds amazing, but what about the tougher parts of life, the hard stuff? How does the sun within help us get through those times?
That's a really good question because, well, the source material is pretty clear that, embodying this sun within, it doesn't mean that life suddenly becomes easy, like problem-free. It's not like magic, right? Actually, the path of awakening often means facing our shadows, like really confronting our fears and working through those deep wounds.
So it's not about just avoiding those challenges, but about facing them head on, but with more courage, more resilience, more compassion, right?
Exactly. It's about using those tough times as opportunities for growth. The source material says that the sun within gives us that strength and wisdom to get through those difficult times, It helps us see the lessons in our challenges, helps us find those opportunities for growth in our setbacks, and to come out of those experiences stronger and more whole.
So the sun within is like this constant support system, even when things are dark and difficult, right? Like it's always there for us, even when we can't see it.
Yes, exactly. And it's not just about barely getting through those challenges, it's about actually transforming them. The source material says that as we connect with the sun within, we get this power to change negativity into positivity, to turn those wounds into sources of healing and to actually use those challenges to help us grow.
Wow, that's a really cool idea.
Right.
It's like we're alchemists, right? Turning lead into gold, darkness into light.
I love that. And that process of transformation, it's not just about us as individuals, it affects the world around us. The source material suggests that as we embody the sun within, we actually help to transform the world around us too. Our presence, our words, our actions, even our energy, it all has this ripple effect. We inspire other people and help create a more loving and harmonious reality just by being who we are.
So it's like we're all connected, right? Each of us is a drop in this ocean of consciousness.
Yeah.
And as we purify ourselves, as we become more aligned with the sun within, we actually contribute to the purification of the whole.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of the great work really comes to life. It's not just about our own personal journey, it's about being part of this collective awakening, contributing to the evolution of consciousness itself.
Okay, so we've talked about how the sun within shows up in our lives and in the world, but I'm still kind of curious about that analogy you mentioned earlier, the pulsating solar bubble. How does that fit in all of this?
Yes. That's a great question. The source material uses that analogy to describe how the sun within and the universe that it creates, how they kind of interact and dance together. So remember, the sun within is this central source of energy, this vibrating force at the heart of everything.
Yeah, and the vibration creates this field of energy and matter around it, this bubble that's always expanding and contracting, like breathing in and out.
Yes. Exactly. And each time it expands outward, each pulse, it creates a new layer of reality further and further away from that central sun. And these layers, they become denser, more material, more solid as they get further away.
So that's like the further we get from the sun within, the more stuck we get in the material world, right? Like we forget who we really are.
You could say that, but the really important thing here is that this bubble, this universe, it's not just static, it's always in motion, always pulsating. And that means that there's always movement back towards the center, back towards that sun within.
So it's not a one-way street away from the source, but this back and forth dance between separation and connection, right? Like a cosmic breath.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And the source material says that this dance is super important, essential for how consciousness evolves. The outward expansion creates that space for all the diversity, for those individual experiences, for exploration and growth. But that inward contraction, it brings us back home, back to that source, back to unity, to a deeper understanding of who we really are.
Okay, I'm starting to get the bigger picture here. So the great work, it's not about escaping the material world, but about participating in this dance, this rhythm of expansion and contraction, of separation and connection.
Yeah.
It's about being present for the whole thing.
Yes, exactly. It's about embodying the sun within in all its fullness, embracing both the light and the shadow, the material and the spiritual, the individual and the collective. It's about being whole.
And as we do this work, as we become more aligned with this sun within, we're actually helping consciousness itself to evolve.
Yeah.
Right? We're hoping to create a more beautiful and harmonious world just by like being who we truly are.
That's the idea. And the source material, it offers this really profound vision of what's actually possible when we tap into this power of the sun within. It says that, we have this potential to create a world where love, compassion, wisdom, and creativity are the guiding principles, a world where everyone can shine.
Wow, that's beautiful. This has been an incredible deep dive. We've really explored a lot here, ancient wisdom, spiritual practices, and even the nature of reality itself. I feel like we've just scratched the surface, but it's given me a lot to think about.
And that's the thing about exploring these kinds of deep concepts.
Yeah.
They just keep unfolding, offering new insights and perspectives as we keep growing and evolving.
So, as we wrap up, what's the main takeaway here for our listener? What do we want them to walk away with?
If I could just add one final thought, it would be this. This sun within is a reminder that we're not just physical beings, We're beings of light, connected to this infinite source of power and wisdom. And even though we might have gotten a little distracted from that source, that path back home, well, it's always open to us. It's a journey of remembering, of purifying ourselves and aligning ourselves with who we really are.
And as we do this, as we reconnect with that inner sun, we're not just transforming ourselves, but we're helping to transform the world around us too. We become like beacons of that divine light, shining it into the darkness and helping to create a more beautiful and just world for everyone. So until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep shining your light.